Hello, everyone. Thank you once again for joining us today for the Fulbright journey. My name is Omar Bashir, and I'm an Education USA advisor based in the Karachi office. Before we begin, I would like to introduce you guys to Education USA. Education USA in Pakistan is part of the U.S. Department of State network of over 430 international student advising centers in more than 175 countries and territories. The network promotes U.S. higher education to students around the world by offering accurate, comprehensive, and current information about opportunities to study at accredited post-secondary institutions in the United States. Education USA Pakistan is the official source of information on U.S. higher education and offers free educational advising services. Along with Education USA, I would also like to introduce you all to USCFP. USCFP is a Fulbright Commission in Pakistan. USCFP promotes mutual understanding between the people of Pakistan and the people of the United States through educational and cultural exchange. To learn more about our organization, programs, and facilities, you can check out our website, which is www.uscfp.org. USCFP has several departments, including programs, advising, and testing. And you can find out more information about these departments and the services that they provide on our official website. Once again, the website is www.uscfp.org. At this time, I would like to introduce you all to our Fulbrighter, Dr. Said. Dr. Said has completed his PhD in computer science and engineering from University of Louisville, and he graduated with his degree in 2022. Dr. Said was a Fulbrighter and went to the United States to do his PhD on Fulbright. Welcome to the panel, Dr. Shah.
Hello, everyone. Sorry, just a second. Right. Oh, so my name is Muhammad Abbas Sayed, and short would be Abbas Sayed, and I'm here to talk about my Fulbright experience. So hopefully, after we're done with this talk, you guys will have a good you'd have a good an assessment of like what the Fulbright program is about and how it works typically, at least from an applicant's perspective. And also I'll also talk about like my journey, like my experience while studying in the US through this program. So as you're aware, I bet most of you who are online right now are prospective applicants to the Fulbright program. So the Fulbright program funds graduate studies in the US typically. So that's a Fulbright degree program. And it can fund master's studies as well as PhD and a 2-year master's or a 1 year as well. And a PhD, so the funding is typically for 4 years with an extension 1 year is also possible. It's a fully funded program, so that's really awesome. So they pay for airfare, tuition, stipend, and health insurance. And there are other perks that they kind of like support perks that they offer. For example, like conference attendance funding, etc. And there's also like top-up allowances as well. And as you're aware, that the application is currently open, and the last date is, I believe, at the end of February. So there are obviously education requirements. So from this information obviously is also present on the website of USCFP. For masters, they require a bachelor's degree, typically the 4-year degree. So you should have 16 years of education, or you can also have like a master's and a bachelor's degree, totaling 16 years of education as well. They also support MBA programs as well. And for that, they have the additional requirements of 2 years of work experience. For PhDs, they the requirement is a master's or MPhil, 18 years of formal education. And which is, as you'll note, that this is very similar to what you'd expect for admission to a master's or a master's or PhD program in Pakistan. For a PhD, they do give preference to candidates with teaching or research experience. So that's a plus if you're applying for a PhD, and you should definitely talk about it in your essays, as I'll talk about later. So that's me. So as I said, my name is that's a really long name, Mohammad Zagim Abbas Saeed, right? So currently I work as an assistant professor in the Department of Electronic Engineering at Mehran University of Engineering Technology. That's in Jamshur. And my free time, I like to read. Obviously, like to play cricket, as you all do, I bet, and also like football as well. And that actually is me in a park in Georgia. I really like that pick. Right. So my professional journey. So I hail from Hyderabad. So that's close to where my undergrad alma mater is. And I started school in 2006. Finished my undergrad with a degree in electronic engineering in 2010. I joined the same university as a lecturer, so it's kind of a contract thing. You kind of add as like work as support. From there, I went on to do my master's at the University of Strathclyde in the UK, and that was between 2012 and 2013. My master's was in electronic and electrical engineering. I put this here because this is kind of important in that you'll know that my PhD is in computer sciences, so that's kind of different, and that's a concern for a lot of Fulbright applicants, especially like what I've noticed during like review sessions that I do for SOPs and stuff. I returned to Pakistan. I joined the same university I was working in previously, and I taught there for like 5 years. I was promoted to an assistant professor, and then in 2018, I went for my PhD at the University of Louisville in Kentucky. And the course I took up was a PhD in computer science and engineering, and I studied there for like nearly 4.5 years, and I came back at the end of 2022, and I've been working at Mehran University since then. So apart from that, I can also zoom in to my into how the timeline for the Fulbright work. So like the Fulbright journey, what it looked like for me. So I applied in 2017. That was the April-May was typically the deadline then. You apply for it. Obviously you fill in the application, like complete the application pack, as I'll talk later. There are interviews that typically take place around August and September. The outcomes, you can get them within a month. And once that's done, there's all this admission and other process that goes on in here that I'll be talking about later as well. And then you have the pre-departure orientation, which is kind of a meetup of all the people who have been awarded the Fulbright scholarship in your cohort. And they had this in Islamabad. And once you are done with that, some people would go. I mean, most of everybody will head to the US. Some people go a little earlier than the program. They might have a like a pre-academic training thing for certain candidates. And once you go there, so you join your school in the US. They typically a month or two later, they'll have an induction seminar. So that's kind of a another gathering of your cohort. They tell you like they have lectures about important things regarding like cultural issues, social issues, and also it serves as a nice way to kind of get together, and everybody has had a few months in the US, and you talk and share about each other's experiences. Then there's a set of enrichment seminars, which are kind of like curricular plus extracurricular seminars. These will they typically have a list of seminars that the Fulbright Commission through IIE conducts in collaboration with different universities in the US. So for example, the seminar that I got to attend was called Lab to Market. So it talked about how one can work on projects in the lab and get them out in the market and kind of go through the whole process of it. So we had that for me, the one that I got chosen for. So you apply for it, you have a list of seminars that you apply for, you make an application, and one that I attended was in May 2019, which is kind of cool because some of them were in 2020, and we all know what happened in 2020. There are also like other online events that took place, like webinars for different cultural things, and other aspects as well. So you generally get links and invitations for those as well, and you can just pick and choose for the online events as need be. And once that was done, I joined, like I said, Maran University back at the end of 2022. So the Fulbright application process. So obviously you have the application pack. The application pack consists of essays, which are pretty much the most important part of your application that you're submitting. There are two essays. There's a personal statement that you need to write. There's a research statement as well, or research objectives as it's called. There's a list of universities and programs that you'll have to write down in the application. Letters of recommendation, transcripts, GRE. You need to give the GRE, as I'll talk about it a bit later. And you also have to give TOEFL, but just to not confuse people, just remember that the TOEFL needs to be given at the time of interview. So if you're shortlisted and called for the interview, the policy when I applied for Fulbright was that we need to have a registration in hand. So we need to show proof of registration for TOEFL. So the first and pretty much, in my opinion, the most important aspect, I guess, the most weighted aspect, I think, is the statement of purpose, the essays. So statement of purpose and research objectives. So the way I look at the statement of purpose, and also there are like specific questions and prompts that you need to answer through your SOP. So for me, like the SOP is a statement of who you are as a person. So you talk about things like your goals in life, what's your background, where you're coming from, what motivates you to do things, and kind of like it would be like a nice expression of yourself, and you want to kind of like talk about your professional goals, your personal goals, and like where you see yourself kind of in the future, if that makes sense. The other essay that needs to be written is the research statement. So the research statement or research objectives, this mostly talks about your professional goals. So typically you're wanting to talk about what you want to achieve through the Fulbright program. So like the course that you're applying for, so it could be like a PhD or a master's in a specific field. And you want to talk about how studying in the US specifically could help you achieve your professional goals. And the idea is like it's really important that you want to talk about how you will achieve them. So you need to be really specific. So the way since I teach at the university, and I like to mentor people who are applying for Fulbright, the way I tell my students to think about this is to kind of like talk about your plan. So you identify like facilities, for example. It's really important that you do not mention specific universities or something, but you talk about specific like areas of expertise that will facilitate your professional objective. Like, I mean, it could be anything. It could be like, maybe addressing Pakistan's energy issues or some infrastructure things or whatever is your aim. So I mean, arguably, these are, in my opinion, as an applicant, the most important aspect of your application. And this is something that I put the most time in, except the GRE, obviously, but that's a time-consuming process by default, the preparation for it. But yeah, this is something I feel like is the most significant part of the application pack. So the other thing that you need to do within when you're working on application, and I feel like it's really important as well, is selecting universities. So as I meant, so there are 4 universities that students need to, like, within the application form, they need to mention for masters. Like if they're applying for a master's program, and there are 5 for students who are applying for a PhD. You need to write down the university name and the specific like program, and also for PhDs, if I remember correctly, you also need to kind of identify the faculty member, or like so the idea is like what you written your research objectives, the programs that you're writing down, they should be relevant and relevant to what you wrote in your research objectives. So things to consider. The things to consider, for example, I mean, for me as a doctoral applicant, the first was the research. So I wanted to make sure, number one, the university or the program name or the professor's name that I'm writing about needs to be relevant to what my aim was through the research objectives, called RO, I guess. The ranking matters, obviously, right? I mean, this is mostly like from like like a profile perspective. So I would say like ranking, although like a lot of people would obviously prefer the really high ranked schools. It's really important, at least from a PhD perspective, that you need to identify the right people, because like coursework is only like a small part of the doctoral study process, like the whole journey, right? You're also looking at the exposure that a university may provide. So, for example, the links that it has to industry, the environment that it has. So depending on what you're going for, if you're going for a more industry oriented like experience, so that's something you want to look at, or you're going for a more like a research oriented like aspect, like that's what you prefer. For me, as I mentioned, like I mean, from their enrichment seminar, I was more interested in the in an institute that provides me more industrial exposure, as like close connection in industry. The culture is something that that obviously is really important. I feel like through the essence of the Fulbright program, like Umar said, is the cultural exchange. It's really important to kind of like prioritize where like you're going in terms of like the cultural diversity that the institution might offer. So for me, I mean, that was also a big consideration, and location as well. Some people have a preference for certain locations based on either climate or something. I mean, if that's your thing, that might be something you can consider as well. So Fulbright, I mean, so the other parts that we're talking about, so GRE. So the GRE exam needs to be given by the application deadline. There's a minimum score that needs to be met. So typically, if you just register and give the GRE by the last date of application submission, that was the policy, and I believe that is still the policy, if I'm not wrong, for the coming cycle as well. There are reference letters that need to be submitted as well. Typically 3 are required, and the requirement within that is at least one should be from an academic, like one should be academic, so you're a professor or teacher, and at least one should be professional for someone who is your manager or something. These can be sent online, so you can actually enter the referee's details in the application form before you submit, and you can have an e-request sent to the referee. And or you can also send one in via post, or they can send one. Obviously, you can like get a sealed envelope and send one in via post. I prefer the online method because it's just so much quicker. You can also check online, if I'm not wrong, if I remember correctly, like if your referee has submitted the reference letter in your name or not. There also like you need to submit transcripts so attested from the school at time of application. If you don't manage the HEC attestation, which will be required later. TOEFL is the English exam. At least the registration is required at the time of interview. So that's something you can kind of like put off later as far as like appearing for the test is concerned until you get selected. I would really recommend that you save a copy of your application for your record, because once you get shortlisted and called for the interview, you might be asked to fill in your application, the same kind of application to IIE's portal, which will be as I'll talk about later, which will be the body that applies for admission on your behalf. So after selection, so let's say so once you're shortlisted for the interview, you give the interview and you're selected. So you'll get an email congratulating you, like, hey, you just got selected, and they'll ask you to sign some documents, and that's when the admission process starts, right? So the first thing that will happen is USCFP, IIE, that's Institute for International Education. They'll work with you in finalizing the programs and universities that you wrote down in your application. So it's really important. I feel like that's really important. One should like take their time with writing those, like filling in that information. You need to make sure that the programs that you choose are relevant to what you're aiming for. Also, IIE has experts that have been working with students for a long time, and they'll also look at programs that may be more relevant to what to the degree course that you're looking to do, and they might change some universities and programs for you. So that's the first thing that you'll be going through. Then IIE applies for admission on your behalf, so they'll apply for admissions in the schools that were chosen for you, or that were like you were chosen for yourself. And once the admits will come in, and then like you'll be sent a placement email, like, hey, this is the particular university that you're going to attend in the US. And once that's done, all of the documentation, like the DS-2019 form that allows you to apply for a visa, and the visa appointment and everything, that's facilitated by the USCFP, which is like a big relief. So that's pretty much it. Once you get that, you will head off to the US. They'll book your flight, like I mentioned. They'll give you a top-up initial like a stipend amount so that you are able to kind of settle down. And that's what happened in the August of 2018 with me. So I went to Louisville. That's right here. And I like these pictures. So these were like right by my Airbnb. So it was really cool to see this. But yeah, that's where Kentucky is. It's in the Midwest. It's a really nice place. I love the city. It's conveniently located, close to a lot of places that you can visit, and I'll be talking about those in a bit as well. So from this part onwards, I'll talk about like my Fulbright experience, how it was to study at the University of Louisville in Kentucky, and that's pretty much it. So the University of Louisville in Kentucky. So it's ranked R1. And a community engaged university by the Carnegie Foundation. So there are 80 R1 universities in the US, and that was one of the reasons that I went to the U of L. And like it offers like great industrial linkages, as I'll talk about. And that's been recognized by the Carnegie Foundation. And it also kind of has this nice balance of like being a research-oriented university as well. So I studied in the computer science and engineering program. And the part, since my research objectives, I was wanting to work in data science for healthcare. So the U of L has a strong medical, like, I mean, a strong like hospital network. So they actually own the two largest hospitals, like the first and the second one in Louisville. So a very good medical program, and they have a really strong computer science like department as well, and that's what kind of attracted me there. And while I was there, they also got a NSA cybersecurity grant as well, and they're getting a center for that too. So I mean, so that's like some of the things that kind of attracted me to the UFL. The computer science and engineering program in the department, the CSE department. The department has 15 laboratories, so they then do different streams of computer science. You have data mining, databases, knowledge discovery, visualization, high performance computing, etc. And I would mention that it's only one of the select few programs which are accredited for both computer science and engineering in the US. So that was pretty neat as well. The thing that really attracted me was obviously close links with industrial partners. And that's where when I mentioned like it's important to kind of identify not only universities but professors as well, who have strong who have favorable work practices in our work like focus, I guess, in terms of like what you want to kind of expose yourself during your PhD. So the PhD course, or like a PhD in the CSE department, requires you to do 18 hours of coursework. There are 4 core areas. So the distribution is slightly different. So you choose like 2 core areas. Like in 2 of those, like you do like I kind of consider like core areas. So you do more courses in those 2 areas, and like you do less number of courses in the other 2. Then you have 9 credits of dissertation research. So that's kind of like your literature review while you're this is the time when you're working on drafting your proposal, working on a topic with your supervisor. And during this time, you also take 2 credits of research seminars. So these are seminars that are organized by the department every week. So 2 credit means like you do it for, so each semester a seminar makes 1 credit, accounts for 1 credit. So you do this seminars for 2 semesters. You have people from the industry and researchers from other schools coming to present on what they're working on. And the idea is to kind of like train yourself and presenting things and looking at how people approach problems. And then obviously then you have the research and the thesis part. So once you're done with the credits for the coursework, once you're done with the 9 credits for dissertation research and the 2 credits for seminars, you basically become the idea is after all of this, you're supposed to defend your proposal. Once you do that, you become a candidate, and you go on into the thesis/research phase of your studies. And the school, sorry to go back. Yeah, this school is called JB Speed School of Engineering. Yeah. So apart from education, there's other support that the university offers, and I made sure that I took part in most of the things that the university offered. For example, there were a lot of volunteering opportunities. There was a gardening common, so there was the UFL sustainability used to have a garden that they used to maintain, right? So organic food that used to grow, and they used to train people for like composting and sustainable like agricultural practices. They also had like biking events. That was something that was very involved in as well. It's for the healthy activity, and it allow you to meet new people too. And apart from that, there was also a lot of socializing and involvement that you had opportunities for. So there were societies such as a multicultural association of graduate students. There was Indian Student Association. There were other ones as well. There were ones that were which were academic organizations like IEEE and ACM. They used to do like different events that you could like socialize in and meet people with similar interests. There was this graduate student association, and they used to do like a lot of events. I was actually a member of the graduate student association as well. So that was a really good experience. It allowed me to go observe how graduate students and how can be organized and how they work there. So and also more importantly, I guess, we also had the professional development, life skills, academic development, and networking unit within the university. That was like a very good resource. So they used to conduct like seminars on things like working on your CV, working on your LinkedIn profile, how to do literature review. There was a graduate teaching academy and whatnot. Like, I mean, how to like deal with stress in exams. And I mean, so like the thing that I want to point out here is like I mean, this is obviously not specific to UFL. There's a lot of like extracurricular like activities that go on and also like support both academic and not and non-academic for people who study there. So that's some that these kind of things keep you busy as well, and kind of give you good exposure to different things that you might need to deal with, like you're living in the US or living in a place that's not your home. Right. So the Fulbright experience. So one of the so there I'll talk about two aspects of this. This one's when I went there, and then there's one they can get out of like once the program ends. So when you go there, the first thing for me although like I mean was culture shock. Um like I mean when I went there I was I mean I've been to the UK and I stayed there for 1 year doing my master's, and I was like when I was like of the opinion that maybe it won't be as different like or as difficult for me as like maybe like people who haven't gone there. So that's something I was wrong in. That's something you'll definitely get. One of the things that you feel when you get there is like you'll probably start to feel homesick. So it won't be like you want to go home, but you kind of like I mean just you just want to go back to like what you had. So that's something that you'll definitely kind of experience. The weather is something that you might get like might have to adjust for. In Louisville, it wasn't that bad. It was like it did get much colder than it does like in Hyderabad, but still, I mean, it wasn't too bad. Food definitely. So that's something that was definitely a thing for me. Louisville is not a metropolitan city or as much of a metropolitan city as like Chicago or New York. So like the food was like issue. So that's something like you might I mean I guess you can just prepare for have in your head that you might need to make do until you figure things out. But I mean it did like end up being great. So that's something that you can keep in mind. So living alone for the first time, that wasn't a thing for me though, since I had gone to the US or like to the UK before. But yeah, I mean that's something you can you can I mean you can look forward to, like, or not look forward depending on how you want to think about it. There also a lot of time for introspection. So like you have a schedule here, and then you go there, you suddenly like you do not have your company, your friend's company that you're used to like hanging out in the evening. So that there's a lot of time for introspection for you to kind of like see like where you are and how you want to proceed with things. Um, and during this time, like I just like put in a slide for this because I wanted to talk about like this that I was really proud of. So the COVID was, as you can imagine, it was a quite a difficult time for people in Pakistan, and you can imagine like being there, in the US, and hearing like all sorts of things on the news, like how deadly it is and whatnot. So I just wanted to mention, like, the reason I put this here is also, Amy, I also want to mention is that there's a lot of support provided by the university as well as WI and USCFP. The university started a food pantry that people could go to because, as you might have heard, there were like shortages for groceries and stuff. The university also provided, like, for anybody who wanted to apply for, they could apply for funds, like additional funds to like get by with things that they want. And the USCFP, and I mean I'd like to give a call out to the USCFP and IIE who were really concerned, and they made sure like that I mean we had someone to like reach out to in case of any issues. And for me, like the part that I really want to talk about, like I was part of the UFL COVID response team, so that was really neat. I'm really proud of that. And we were like, this was like right like 2 months in when the pandemic was declared, and we were assembling shields at the UFL's additive manufacturing facility. So that was pretty neat. But I mean, just saying, like, I mean, there was ample support that was provided by both the university and the USCFP. So on the positive side, like, so Fulbright, so what's new when you move? Well, I mean, the first thing that you do is you travel, right? I mean, you get to travel, you get to meet new people, you make new friends, right? And you learn a lot. So that's like one of the things that I value the most in the US, like from a time in the US, is that I feel like I feel like I have developed a lot as a person, because you typically are, I mean, I live with flatmates, so it was nice to kind of observe how they think, like, even like people from the same area might think different, the way they approach stuff, and it was interesting to kind of meet people that way, and kind of establish connections, as I'll talk about later as well. I am in touch with a lot of friends from there still, and that's kind of like a thing I value a lot. And obviously you travel, right? I mean, you get to travel the world, like, I mean, at least to the US, and if you want, you can travel to other parts of the world as well. So yeah, so that's like definitely something that you need to look forward to. You need to look forward to making new people, kind of like, putting yourself in different circumstances, different atmospheres, so you can learn and grow as a person. So that's something that was like the most positive part of the Fulbright experience. And the enrichment seminars, the induction seminars and stuff, that was like a big part of this as well, where you get to meet Fulbrighters from other countries. So that was really neat. So that's like the most important. I mean, like, the education obviously is super, super important, but this cultural aspect, I feel like, is equally important, if not more so. After Fulbright, what comes next? So the first thing uh that you do after finishing your degree, you get a lot of relief. You can see like the smile there, right? Oh my God, I was like so happy. It was a long journey and it finished. I mean, it was the end. It was a culmination of all the hard work that I put in. You make a lot of memories, so you have like friends here. Like, I mean, you can see I really like this the picture on the top right, because that's those are like my friends' aunts and uncles, and the picture that you saw on the introductory page, like, where I was standing, that I actually went to their house, and they have this nice place near the right on like on literally in the Smoky Mountains. And obviously you have a lot of memories, and you get a lot of recognition and value. So I mean, you complete your studies, and you're like, more qualified, obviously with the degree that you have gained, right? And you're grown as a person, so I mean, you have more I mean, you kind of, a more valued person, if you mean. The coming back obviously is a culture shock. That, which is like kind of, I mean, it's a part of the way that things are. So you come back to Pakistan, you live there, especially for a PhD, and I bet also for the masters, you lived in the US for a significant amount of time. And for me, if I may say so, living in the US was a much more immersive experience. So I mean, like, you kind of like, it's very different compared to how things are in how things work in Pakistan. So that's something that takes some time to kind of adjust back when you come here again. Um, so the impact of the scholarship. So this is a picture. The picture on the top left from the orientation, like in Wisconsin. So ours took place in Wisconsin. That's in November 2018. The one on the bottom right is the Lab to Market seminar. The one on the top right, so in the bottom right is Lab to Market seminar, and the top right is like a group of friends going out to visit. places, and the one on the bottom left is the Fulbright it's the social network. So you have networking opportunities with a professional. So you do that through a seminar, through a professor, attending conferences. Remember that for masters candidates, Fulbright or the USCFP funds one conference visit and like in registration, everything, presentation, and for PhDs two conference presentations. You obviously have all the personal networking that, I mean, you can see the pictures for that. They offer professional support through the funding, and there are also like other fundings that they offer, like, support for research sometimes. They might have a policy for that. And of course, you become part of the Fulbright family. So you join the Fulbrighter social network, and you can interact with other Fulbrighters anywhere around the world, which are a great resource if you want to kind of excel professionally or even personally and like leisurely. I believe so that's a career impact for me. It opens up opportunities for career progression. So not only did my professor, give me the experience of writing proposals, but he had collaborators in Europe, and I'm in touch with them as well, right? And they're connected which made with last a lifetime. So I've been staying in touch with all of my friends that I have there, and it's nice to kind of get updates on them and see what's going on in their lives. And of course, as you're aware, Fulbright is recognized as a prestigious award throughout the world. So like when you tell people you're like a Fulbright awardee, they are like, okay, cool. I mean, that's awesome. So that's nice to hear, right? It's always nice to hear someone kind of like telling you you're good. And with that, I'll end my presentation. I want to thank the Fulbright Commission and the USCFP for their support and everything, and in making this whole journey possible. That's our university's logo, and that's me on my graduation day, right in front of a thinker. So the UFL is a thinker, which is pretty cool. And that's the thank you. And I think we can start the Q&A now, if that's okay.
Thank you so much, Dr. Abbas Shah. That was really nice. Thank you so much for sharing your journey. Students, if you have any questions, you can utilize the Q&A box and ask any question that you may have related to the scholarship, and we can take your questions. So, Dr. Shah, could you talk more about how did you write your SOP?
Sure. So, so the way I tell my students to work on their SOP is like, so they know the prompts, like in the application has like points that you want to talk about. And the way I tell my students to write their SOPs is like, don't look at the word limits, don't look at like, grammar and stuff, and just write down anything that comes to your mind that addresses those questions. So you want to like, write your heart out. And the idea is like, once you have everything in, then you start to like trim things off, and you want to write it as a story. The end version should kind of read as a story. And also it's important, I think, like at least that's how I wrote my SOP myself as well, is that you need to understand that this is something that that is kind of a live document, that it requires revision. So it won't be something, at least for me, I would never be satisfied by like writing a draft now and then saying, okay, this is a final version. So like write a draft, work on other things, maybe come back to it a day later and see like, maybe with a fresh mind, with a different approach and different perspective. And that's how I would go on and like, kind of work the SOP out. And obviously, the research objectives. So the way although that's a different essay, but it's important to kind of indicate to what you want to do in what you're going to talk about in the research objectives. So you want to connect them together. So like the SOP and the research objectives are not like complete separate documents. So you want to make sure like the goals that you mention in your SOP, they kind of like sit in well with what you're going to talk about in the research objectives.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Can you talk about your interview process when you were selected for the Fulbright? You were shortlisted for the Fulbright.
Oh, sure. So like for the interview, the first thing that I talked about, so a lot of interview is basically from SOP, from your essays, right? From SOP and research objectives. They want to make sure that what you're talking about, you have a good plan for achieving that, and that you've worked out you kind of done your research and how are you going to achieve that as well. So first thing that I did was like when I was called for the interview was like make a nice introduction about myself, right? So you want to make sure that you come out as a person who's like who's eloquent in how they speak, right? Articulate as well. And once you're done that, when you've done that, then you talk about what your goals are. The way I approach interview is like during my introduction, I kind of like alluded to my SOP. Like I mean, so the introduction kind of has aspects of my SOP, and I also alluded to my research objectives as well. So the idea is to kind of, I mean, the way that I approach interviews, the idea is to like kind of tell the interviewers everything that I could, and not have them like, I mean, so they're comfortable in engaging with me in a discussion or a conversation rather than like, asking me questions from a document that I'd written. So you kind of come out as a person who's very easy to talk to. And it's really important as well, right? I mean, the scholarship is cultural exchange. So you want to come out as a person who's easy to talk to, who's very open, and that's how like I took up the interview call as.
Thank you. Was it hard for you to reach out to people who you wanted to get a letter of recommendations from?
No, so for me, like since I was for me, I was kind of like it was convenient because I was lucky that I was working in the same institution as from which I did my undergrad in. For yes, so one for one of the recommendations though, the one that I got from a supervisor in the UK, I had to kind of like plan ahead and make sure that I put out all the requirements very clearly. And that's why I say like having the online system really helps. So you send in the recommendation emails. So for example, if you're applying for Fulbright, if I was you, I would probably like, and if I had a like, let's say if someone in the UK or maybe I don't know some other country that you're wanting to get a recommendation from, what I would personally do is I would send a request right now. There's also a form, on the UCFP website that kind of is pretty much I think given that now I've like submitted recommendations for my students as well. So that's very similar to the printable form, like I mean the print form in print. So it's nice to kind of like give the sample to them. They're gonna do something like this. It'd be awesome if you can kind of like write recommendation along this format, and then like you can make sure you have enough time to follow up with them if they haven't submitted the request within time. So that's definitely one of the first things I would recommend people do is to like send in the recommendation requests, because the recommendation requests need to be if I remember correctly, the policy back in 2018 was all recommendations need to be like in by the deadline of the application. So that's like maybe the end of Feb. So getting all the recommendations is the safest way to go about doing it, in my opinion.
Thank you. Can you talk about how did you prepare for the GRE?
So for the GRE, I mean, I know like the trend changes. I also heard like the format has changed slightly from when I gave it. But for me, like the resources that I use was I used the Barron's GRE book. If it's okay if I give specific names. I know like I mean there are obviously better resources available, and everybody has their thing. There were also the Manhattan 5-pound book, if I'm not wrong. That's what it called. So that I use for so for strategy is Barron's, and there were some strategies from Kaplan's that were useful as well. Manhattan's GRE, like 6-pound or 5-pound book, I think, if I remember correctly, was what I practiced the quant problems from. For English, the different parts of the English thing, I use Magoosh, so they have some nice resources there. And for analytical, it was just practice, just writing practice. I would also like to mention here that ETS has resources on their website. I remember like the way I started preparing. So these are the resources I use, right, to kind of prepare for it. The way I started was like the ETSS practice tests. There were two, if I remember correctly, when I was about to give the GRE. So I gave the GRE test first, kind of like to see where I was at, and then kind of did targeted practice or specific parts that I didn't do well on. From experience, I'll just talk a little bit from experience. So when I gave the GRE, so one thing that I did like during my exam was so there, if I remember, I had like three sections of quant. So I think the way it works is like two quant and two verbal, and then one can be of any of the sections. So I did well into in the first two like quant sections, and then I got overconfident and I got literally quick. So that's something that I feel like if I was going to give myself advice like in 2018, then I would say like, you know, even if you're doing well, just take it easy, because in the end I had time remaining, and I shouldn't have like, you know, just hurried with like just submitting my exam. So that's something, kind of take your pace with it. You know how many questions you have to answer, and this it's really important to kind of not rush through things, even if you feel like you're doing well.
Thank you so much. So there was a question in the chat if IELTS is acceptable. So this time around for the Fulbright, if the candidates are shortlisted, then they would be required to take Duolingo. So I hope that answers your question. Um, Dr. Abbas, would you be comfortable if students send you their SOP, since we advisors are not allowed to like give feedback for students who are applying for Fulbright on their SOP? Would you be open to provide feedback to them if they reach out to you?
Sure, yeah. And also in this, I'll just mention one thing. I mean, I'd be happy to like go over SOP, because that'd be like awesome if I can help you like on your Fulbright journey. Um, yeah, I mean, like I've seen like like on different Facebook groups and stuff, I've seen people like send SOPs to like other candidates. That's something I definitely suggest. Like if you're a candidate and there's another candidate who says like I'll go over SOP, don't do that, because that's like your SOP is supposed to be personal, right? It's really important to not also like look. You also find maybe sample SOPs online. It's okay to go through them, but there is no winning formula, right? I mean, so for example, if I like me and my friends used to like work on SOPs, and we shared each other's SOPs with you, like, you know, with us, like between us. And I just found like I mean, everybody has their own writing style, so it's really important to be unique, and that's what's going to set your application apart from everyone else. So the short answer, yes, definitely, I'd be happy to go over like SOP and give you like my 2 cents on what I think could be done to improve it, if it could be improved.
Thank you so much. Do you mind writing your email address where the students can send their SOPs at?
Sure. I should like chat. Can like people see him at the chat if I type in the
Yes,
chat? Okay.
yes, they can see it.
Okay. Just a second. There you go. Should I read out the questions or?
No, I can get it for you.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
So the student is asking, what are the three most important points to consider while writing research and study objectives?
So I mean, so I would think like, given that, so the Fulbright in my experience is like cultural as well as academic, especially for like for both PhDs and masters. So it should be I feel like if you have some research objectives and stuff, you should be it should be very relevant to Pakistan, right? Uh so it need not be like on a national stage, but something that is important, that's worth solving, a problem that's worth solving, or a issue that's worth working on, right? Also, what you want to show through your SOP is like, I mean, you want to show you're really motivated to do what you're wanting to do. That's, I think, super important. So that's point number 2. Point number 3 is so there are going to be people who read your application, right? And you're not going to be able to pitch them in person. So when I say like they should be connected, and like you know, kind of one should complement the other. and the SOP should read like a story. So that's like the top three things that that I would be looking at if I was, I mean, that I would think are most important in my opinion.
Thank you so much. So those were all the questions for the session. Thank you so much, Dr. Abbas Shah, for sharing your Fulbright journey with us today. Students, his email address is in the chat, so you can get it in case you want your SOP reviewed, or you can reach out if you have any other questions. Once again, thank you so much, Dr. Shah, for coming in and speaking about your Fulbright journey.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, students. Thank you so much for joining. If you have any questions, you're more than welcome to send us an email. Thank you and have a great weekend. Bye.
Bye, everyone.